So, as a lifelong World of Warcraft player, I've always had EverQuest in the back of my mind as a game that I would like to go and check out and see what it was all about in the world of MMOs before World of Warcraft came along. And I heard so many stories about EverQuest and this grand world of adventure, like this giant world to explore, and the friendships and bonds forged along the way, and it all just very much appealed to me. But there is actually, I think I might have unlisted it. There was a video on this channel of me checking out EverQuest, and I did not get far because it has the Morrowind problem for me. And by that, what I mean is, as someone whose first Elder Scrolls game was Skyrim, the further back you go, the harder it is to adjust when you're used to the game design being more modern or being something else. And so I've never been able to really get to grips with EverQuest. I've played some of EverQuest 2, and I do want to play more of EverQuest 2, but from what I understand, EverQuest 1 is where it's at. But the problem with EverQuest 1, for a new player, is it's so archaic that basic things such as moving around the world and interfacing with the HUD and stuff is, it's an adjustment, and that adjustment is going to hinder your ability to really get lost in the game world. There's a steeper learning curve than you might expect. So I'm not saying it's impossible, and maybe if I tried again and really dedicated myself to it, maybe I would be able to get into the original EverQuest. But also, there's stuff about, and I'm not an expert, but I know that EverQuest has some very punishing death mechanics. It's very difficult to play the game solo. All that stuff, which just kind of puts me off at first glance. So imagine my delight when they announce EverQuest Legends, which is supposed to be coming out, I believe, in June, and closed beta starts late April. I'm not going to take part in a closed beta because that's not my style. I don't like playing on a temporary character knowing all my progress is going to be erased and I'm not playing the final version of the game, so I will wait till June. But for those of you who are unaware, EverQuest Legends is a sort of remixed version of the original game, right? It's not just a re-release of the original with some tweaks. It's the main selling point of the game is it's solo friendly now, and it's solo friendly by way of, instead of choosing one class, you will choose 3 classes, and you will have access to the spells of all 3 classes, and you will be much more powerful due to this. You will basically be your own group, and that sounds very cool to me. But also there's other changes, like they're going to be changing the user interface. There's still going to be a classic user interface for people who are familiar with the game, but there's going to be a new one for people who are approaching the game for the first time. And hi, that's me. I very much appreciate this. There's going to be a bunch of quality of life changes. Like, I've seen stuff about being able to immediately bank or sell items in the loot window when you're looting enemies, which is interesting. And it seems like the devs have also put a lot of thought into what this means within the EverQuest universe itself in terms of story and canon. And I don't understand all of the stuff they've said because I'm not an EverQuest player, but it's gonna be interesting, it seems. It's like, from what I've heard, it's like they are basically playing off of the original lore in a very interesting and unexpected way. And so, I mentioned I come from World of Warcraft. I play Classic every now and again. I enjoy it. People have been begging for a Classic Plus. The closest we've got so far in that game is Season of Discovery, which I very much enjoyed. I do believe we will get a proper Classic Plus at some point. But this feels like more than a Season of Discovery. This feels like a Classic Plus for EverQuest. I believe they've hinted that original content and zones are on the table for this. I'm not gonna lie, that stuff doesn't appeal to me so much because I'm a new player. They could just say they were gonna re-release all the expansions over time and I would be interested because I've not played any of them. But I think this is good for people who are familiar with the game already because they do already do those progression re-release servers, which is something I've always found very cool about EverQuest and EverQuest 2. But EverQuest Legends as an announcement was a complete surprise for me. And over the last however long it's been since they announced it, I've just found myself becoming more and more excited. Because I know there's still going to be design archaisms, right? There's still going to be things I need to adjust to. But just the simple fact that it's going to be solo-friendly, and I can approach it at my own time, on my own terms, is very compelling to me. It sounds like the prime way for a new player who doesn't want to get super involved in running with a group the entire time to get acquainted with the original EverQuest for the first time. Now, I have seen some discussion about the fact that there was an EverQuest private server that was basically this idea, and it got nuked because, private servers and copyright stuff. It happened with the what's it called again? I've forgotten now. It's not Nostradamus. The very famous WoW vanilla server that kind of helped prove to Blizzard that people wanted a classic WoW. And it's very unfortunate that these private servers end up getting killed and shut down and stuff. But I think it is also a little bit inevitable. And I've seen some people say they'll never play EverQuest Legends because that private server was killed for this, and I can understand that. But as someone who's a newcomer, private servers don't necessarily appeal to me because you don't have that official guarantee of service, if you know what I mean. Like, you don't have the infrastructure in place to guarantee the servers remain online. You don't necessarily have a guaranteed future, partially because of stuff like this. You don't have robust customer support systems and stuff, like things you kind of take for granted but you do need in a MMO. Whereas EverQuest Legends, it's not from the original dev studio per se, but it is licensed to a dev studio. It is an official EverQuest product, and I'm still a little dubious, like, what happens if it's not as popular as they want it to be, like, what is this game's future, and so on and so forth. But ultimately, I'm just excited to check it out. I've also seen some discussion around the fact that apparently it's going to be a box price product with a subscription, but we've been told that both the box price and the subscription are less than we might expect, and that there will also be some form of monetization, although I believe I heard it's not going to be pay to win, thank fuck, and it's just going to be cosmetics and stuff. But when you're providing a classic MMO experience, what your character looks like and is wearing is arguably part of player power, I would say. Like, it's not technically player power, but it's very much like, this person is wearing the coat of tremendous ruffleage, and I know that only drops from this boss, and if we're being encouraged to, like, wear items which you can just buy from the store, that definitely takes away from the experience. That is a shame. But I'm not familiar enough with EverQuest to really form a solid opinion on that front. But yeah, let me just read you the about the game and key features section on their official website and comment on it. So, about the game. EverQuest Legends has been designed from the ground up to appeal to players who enjoy playing their games solo and or casually. While groups up to 4 players and raids up to 8 players are available, the entire game can be played, enjoyed, and experienced solo if that's your playstyle. And I believe I've heard as well that means dungeons and raids can be done solo as well, which is a very fun concept that I enjoy. But also I like the fact that they're not shying away from the idea of, like, if you still want to group up and do it traditionally, you can. So next bullet point. In keeping with this approach to the game, EverQuest Legends provides players with the ability to create immensely powerful characters by, among other things, selecting up to 3 active different classes per character. For example, you can make a rogue/paladin/wizard, and utilizing new ways to upgrade weapons and armor. As you level up and improve your gear in EverQuest Legends, you will eventually gain the ability to take on the most difficult game content, whether alone or with a small group of friends. So there it is. Yeah, literally like the hardest raids in the game you can just do as a solo player, which is wild, and I'm so on board for that idea. I haven't seen any other MMOs attempt this, whether modern or like remixing classic content. Final bullet point. Whether you're an existing EverQuest player, a former player, or a new player, hi, that's me, that has never experienced the world of Norath, EverQuest Legends offers the opportunity to enjoy everything classic EverQuest has to offer, plus a lot more. At launch, EverQuest Legends will feature the continents of Antonica, Faedwir, and Odus, pre-Kunark, whatever that means, and all of the EverQuest playable races, including Ixar, Froglocks, and Keren, all featured in the original EverQuest art style, including the classic graphics, zones, spell effects, loot, and music, plus more than a few new surprises. So there's a lot there, but what it's basically saying is some of the races, I've heard people talk about this, some of the races that are released in later expansions are actually available in this base game here, which is fun to bring that forwards, and have a fun little remix feature. And I've heard them talk about as well, like, over the years, the EverQuest art style evolved and changed and clashed with earlier parts of the game and stuff. They're aiming to keep it all, like, the original art style to create a cohesive art experience, which is nice. And then moving on to the key features here, experience classic EverQuest. EverQuest Legends features all of the magic and nostalgia of classic EverQuest, including the original art style, graphics, zones, spell effects, loot, and music. Enjoy the game as it hasn't been seen, heard, or experienced in over 20 years, which leads me to believe that there is no real EverQuest experience like EverQuest Classic, for example. Like I mentioned, there's progression servers which constantly re-release new expansions. I don't really know how that works out, if they're just being hyperbolic here, or if this really is going to be the first time we get to go and experience the classic version of the game in terms of, art style and stuff, but that's cool. Modern game features. EverQuest Legends features tons of modern game features, including a streamlined user interface, upgraded spell and ability management, and countless other quality of life enhancements. That is going to be crucial for me as a new player, so I appreciate that. Forge Your Legend. EverQuest Legends allows players to create unique characters by selecting up to 3 classes at a time, with all of the benefits, stats, spells, and abilities that come with each class. You can also upgrade your gear up to plus 10 and swap and combine different focus, click, and proc effects on your gear. With 15 available races and 560 possible class combinations, the possibilities for forging the ultimate character are virtually endless. And that's something I think is going to be really fun as well, which is just the idea of all of these different class combinations. I'm so used to there being like 8 or 9 classes in an MMO. If you're considering having 3 classes as a single class, there's 560 classes in this MMO, and I'm sure there are going to be some which are not viable and some which are. I'm sure it's going to be very fun for people to figure out what works and what doesn't. And hopefully there's going to be a broad spectrum of combinations which are just like viable. Like maybe not the most efficient classes in the world, but viable for playing through all of the content in the game and doing a good job, right? And I'm hoping it's not just like, oh, if you want a solo, you always have to pick like a tank and a healer, as well as like whatever DPS class you want to be maining. So really it boils it down to like a few different ones. But also ultimately, I'm coming in as a brand new player, so it's not super important to me to have 560 classes, like I would get a lot of gameplay out of just 8. And it's not really 560 classes because, it'll be like, oh, I've already played a warlock and a necromancer combination, but not with a priest. Last time it was with a monk. I don't know if those classes exist in the game. I'm just making them up. But it's not as crazy as having that many different classes, but the combinations is a very fun idea. And finally, adventure your way with the additional power provided to player characters and the many benefits of a modernized gaming experience. EverQuest Legends makes it possible for players to progress through the game at their own pace and to forge their own adventures, whether alone or with others. While small groups up to 4 players and raids up to 8 players are possible, even a solo player can build a character strong enough to take on the toughest challenges and acquire the most epic gear in the game. Which implies to me that's all raid difficulties, assuming raids have difficulties in this game. So yeah, very, very fun. I'm aware this isn't brand new news, by the way. I just realized it might be worthwhile to give my perspective as an outsider who is very excited for EverQuest Legends, instead of like all I've heard so far is from former EverQuest players who are like, yay, I'm excited to experience the game again in this remixed format. This is also selling itself to new players, and it's me. I'm the new player they're selling to, so the only thing I want to say is it doesn't matter all that much, but I do hope it releases on Steam, because that's where I like to play my games. And so far I have not seen a Steam page for it, but EverQuest 1 and 2 are on Steam, so I would be surprised if this was not. But yes, I'm very excited. This has quickly become one of my most anticipated games of the year. Thank you for coming and checking out this video. If you are familiar with EverQuest, let me know if there's anything you think I should know in the comments below about the game, like what might be a good class combination to pick, or like, is there anything they've said that I haven't noticed or picked up on that would be good for new players and stuff. And if you are also like me, who has never played EverQuest but is excited to and thinks that EverQuest Legends will be the way to do it, also feel free to leave a comment, because I'm curious as to how many of us there are. That's all for me. Thank you for listening. Please leave a like if you liked the video. Other than that, I'll catch you on whatever I make next.